Welcome to NFL, where NFL starts and ends. I'm host Jacob, and to begin, we talk about Tyreek Hill. Now, Tyreek, a couple weeks ago on Father's Day, was had faced the allegation of him assaulting a person at the Miami Marina, and now it is reported Tyreek Hill will face charges for that alleged assault. It goes on. This is written by Shayna McCarriston of CBS Sports.com, as it goes and says the victim has reportedly decided to file charges against the Miami Star. According to the allegations, Hill allegedly slapped a 57-year-old man in Miami. It goes on and says neither Hill nor the alleged victim, the 57-year-old man, according to Mike Florio of Pro Football Talk, have been named in an incident report released by the Miami-Dade Police Department. It was reported by the local 10 News that the Dolphin star allegedly struck a man working at Haulover Marina in Miami. Hill reportedly slapped the employee on the back of the head. The incident began when Hill and his group boarded a boat without permission. Boat employees told police that Hill said, "I can buy you in the boat, and I'm number 10 with the Miami Dolphins," police said. The incident report claims that the alleged altercation was captured by surveillance, but footage has not been released. It goes on that the police told the alleged victim to go see the state attorney if he wanted to pursue charges. And it is quote unquote not known if the league will face down or face or decide to have decide to relay repercussions against Tyreek Hill. Now, I don't think they will, but if this happens, if Tyreek Hill ends up missing time for any particular reason, that is a disaster for the Miami Dolphins. You cannot afford to do that. And then I would go and get to Tyreek's I would go to Tyreek and be like, "Man, you can't do that." We live in the age of social media and surveillance, and everyone knows who you are. So even if there is no evidence and that they can't prove that you actually did it, then why does then why do it in the first place? Because everyone has surveillance video now. Everyone has their social media now. It's very easy to get someone in trouble. Even if what they said 8 years ago, 10 years ago, somehow is relevant today, which doesn't make any sense. But if you're Tyreek, why take that chance anyway? There's no reason for you to take that chance. So, does he face a suspension? I guess we'll only know in the coming days, but it will be interesting to see what happens to Tyreek Hill as this process unfolds. Next up, we talk about Antonio Brown. Now, Antonio Brown talked about he was playing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This is the quote. This is just the headline. Quote from AB. Bucs treated me, quote unquote, like a dog, explains runoff. It goes on and says, Brown claims that he was promised a lot of targets if he played through an injury and then didn't get them. And it goes on and on about the law or them losing in the game to the Jets at 24-10 when Antonio Brown decided to take off his jersey and shoulder pads and run off the field, like parading, dancing, running to the end zone. And strange details came out about this incident pretty much immediately after Brown was released. Brown claimed that he felt he was too injured to re-enter the game, and head coach Bruce Arians disagreed, which was a result for Arians telling Brown to get out. And then about a year and a half later, Brown is offering more details on actually Tyreek Hill's podcast. He says, Brady, this thing keeps resetting. It says, Tom called me. He said, yo, this week, man, we play the Jets. They sweet, man. I'm gonna hit you with about 10 or 12 targets. So he gonna, so you're gonna gas me up like that. All I need to hear that you're gonna throw me the ball. This is like me saying, I got you a new crib, you know what I'm saying. It's a very convoluted quote, to say the least. And then, but according to Brown, he said, I decided to, upon hearing that, to play in the game despite the injury keeping me out of practice. And then he goes on and saying how he was really hurt. And I took pictures I sent the coach and I told him, look, if we're gonna go win a Super Bowl, I'm gonna need to take these last 2 weeks off to recover so we can go and win the Super Bowl. But then coach called me and told me about and then Tom called me and said about the 10 or 12 passes that gassed me up and I was ready to go. I already known they were being fake to me as I got suspended for breaking COVID-19 rules, and I came back and they had some guys hurt. He goes on about how they treated him like a dog and how they did not. It, the last thing it said in this report was this was EB's perspective, so don't treat it as it was factual. I think this is the truth. I think Antonio Brown has been through a lot in his NFL career, physically and mentally, and so he doesn't quite understand the fact of him being an athlete. Everything you say is going to be talked about. So either AB is right, that he's 100% right, or he's 100% wrong, and he's just saying that this is what I feel happened. 'Cause I can't share what actually happened. That is where I think it is more of that I'm not gonna share what exactly happened. I didn't wanna share the fact that I might not have been a great teammate, that I only cared about myself. Moving on to Melvin Gordon. Melvin Gordon went was talking about the running back position, and he says, "It sucks to be a running back in the NFL right now." And that is true because you look at these quarterbacks, wide receivers, linebackers, they're getting $20 million a year. You're seeing these running backs, their highest running back paid, I think, that got paid this year was $6 million. That was Miles Sanders. So it is a shocker, but it's also because the NFL is starting to, the pendulum is starting to shift, so it is more pass happy. We are throwing the ball more. We're running more plays, but we're throwing the ball a lot more. We're throwing the ball a lot more on first downs and a lot more on these third and shorts. We're not running the ball as much. And also it doesn't help that the running back career is remarkably shorter. It's about 4 or 5 years, and then when you get to about 30 or just about 30, that's when everyone's saying, "Okay, well, he's done. We're not paying him a very lucrative contract. Doesn't make sense to do so." So I understand Melvin Gordon's frustration. I also have to say, give it time. These things usually shift back, and then the next thing you know, running backs are making quite a bit of money because there's athletes you've never seen before and they start making more money. So if you're Melvin Gordon, like obviously this probably doesn't affect you because you'll probably be out of the league at that point and probably be retired, but maybe in the next 5 years or so, the game starts to shift back and running backs are treated more fairly in the free agent market or when they're coming up for a new contract. Next up, some good news. Davante Adams was quote unquote or was cleared of the misdemeanor assault charges that happened. And it was as he quote as he assaulted for shoving he has faced assaulting charges for shoving a photographer. This is the first paragraph of this. A frustrated Davante Adams shoved a photographer, and the Raiders lost October loss to the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. The wideout faced potential legal repercussions from the Kansas City Chiefs Department charged the star wideout with a misdemeanor assault. I can't say that word. Municipal court records revealed a day after the photographer filed the police report on Saturday. The Kansas City Star reported that those charges have since been dismissed. It goes on and on about the freelance cameraman from ESPN claimed that he would suffered whiplash, headaches, and possible concussion. And then there was video of this incident where Adams does in fact push him, use two hands for him to get out of the way. He he reportedly voluntarily sought hospital care afterwards for injuries for non-life threatening. Adams then apologized and then went on Twitter and said sorry to the guy I pushed after the game. And he goes on and says, obviously, I was very frustrated at the way the game ended. And when he ran into ran right in front of me, as I was exiting, that was my reaction. And I felt horrible immediately. He went and he wrote a letter. He said later that he apologized. The guy jumped in front of him on the field. He kind of pushed him, kind of bumped him, and he fell down. And so I'm happy because it just seemed like one of those things of you ran right in front of the guys are very frustrated, upset, they lost the game, but also when you're up the majority of the game and that's what happens to you, that you end up losing, you're frustrated. So, of course, I'm not saying it was warranted, I'm just saying you could see that Adams was frustrated, so maybe not run in front of him with a camera. Just a set, just a thought. Okay. Next up, I wasn't really gonna talk about this, but we'll talk about this. Cowboys defensive end Demarcus Lawrence went and talked about the gap between the Eagles and the Cowboys, and he went and said that the gap isn't that big. It's not a because and he went on basically explaining, "Look, the way our division works, no one has won back-to-back in division titles in 20 years. So, it's a lot more challenging, but it also means that it kind of goes back and forth, and the Cowboys and Eagles have won it the most in recent years. So, I really think that it's not really a gap between those 2 teams, it's a gap between the Cowboys and Eagles the Cowboys and Eagles against and the gap is between the Giants and the Commanders, that's the gap. The Eagles and Cowboys are on one side, the Giants and Commanders on the other side, where they just haven't won the division as much. Not saying it's not possible they can get be onto the other side of that, but as of right now, that's how it works in my mind. But when he went and said that, obviously the media outlook said, "Oh my gosh, we need to talk about this," even though he's just giving out an opinion, nothing crazy enough to say an opinion, but now over in the media world, that's kind of unwarranted. There was a report came out that the owners, this was said by Ian Rappaport this past week, said the owners are going to meet on July 20th for the Commanders vote because that's when the financial commissions won't be done and the owners can then take over and say this deal that Daniel Snyder is going to be removed as owner. We're going to have a new owner. That will probably be passed by then. And this is a very lucrative process. There's a lot that has to go into it, especially with what was happening with the Commanders. This is what was written, but it's not worded properly. It says Commanders sale NFL schedule special league meeting for July 20th for potential owners vote. It's not going to be just potential. It is going to be for the owners vote. It is going to pass because I think all the owners are just upset with how Daniel Snyder has run the organization the last since he's owned the team, but really in the last couple years of just bad publicity towards the NFL. I really think this is going to be an interesting vote, but I think it will also happen rather quickly. The one thing I did not know was I was t with the one thing I didn't know was when I heard that come out about the vote will be soon, I didn't know, like, exactly if a deal is in place, A, how long it takes for the deal to be in place, and B, do they if they are in the midst of trying to sell the team to another person, does that person have a little bit of input to what happens? Which I kinda thought it was a no, I just wasn't 100% certain if it was a no. And finally, ex-NFL linebacker Bill Romanowski has been sued by the US government. It goes and says, former NFL linebacker Bill Romanowski and his wife being sued by the US government for more than $15.3 million for alleged unpaid taxes. It goes and says the Department of Justice, in its lawsuit, it goes on and says they were using the money from their nutrition company to pay personal expenses. The Department of Justice alleges that the Romanowskis have avoided paying millions of federal taxes from 98 to 2007. Romanowski founded the Nutrition 53 in 06, with the Department of Justice accusing them of using the money in the company's bank accounts in hopes to avoid those federal income taxes. Romanowski used money from Nutrition 53 to pay everything from pet food to his daughter's rent, according to the suit. They go on and on about them using for personal living expenses, the improper use of N53, the IRS collection of individual income taxes, assessments at issue of the case. It goes on and on about Romanowski's playing career, but it is a shame. You see a lot of these guys, and you're like, you gotta learn a little bit here. Like, you are too good of a person that you made it out. You made a business. So you used your wealth and then you made a business. And now it comes out that you, in fact, did not pay your taxes like any other normal person would do for income taxes or any kind of taxes. That's ridiculous. And it comes a lot of these athletes, players, people in other sports or other kinds of entertainment that they don't save and they don't pay their taxes, and that's why they have to continue to work into their late 70s and 80s because they didn't save when they could have actually retired probably in their 50s. Well, if I'm Bill Romanowski, this this is not the way I want my story to end, that I did not pay the US government. So hopefully it goes alright for the Romanowski family, but not the position you wanna be in if you're Bill Romanowski. For NFL World, I'm Jacob Hewitt, out.